superheroes are pretty much the closest entities to God in the worlds they live in, and that ain't much of a bad thing considering how badass and overpowered they are. Well, it also depends on which era we're... Now, you already know how much I like to prove my point, so here are the top 25 God mode scenes in superhero movies. The Eternals didn't go on to become the cult film the producers were hoping for it to be, but hey, when you have the TV region, you can rest assured that deserving characters always get their flowers. Take Macquarie, for example. People don't really understand how much of a speedster she really is, but if you look at the scene where she's scanning Earth to look for the volcano, it's quite evident that she's one of the fastest in the game. In less than 15 seconds, she was able to travel what I can estimate to be around 5,500 kilometers, which is pretty damn fast in any book. The visuals depicting her running and the jumps were pretty accurate and aesthetically pleasing, which is apparently a lot to ask for nowadays. See, they should have stuck to more of this stuff than the slow plot and incomplete character arcs.
Drig's gone. It's over.
Anyway, I'm not an online YouTube critic, so let's just say that Macquarie totally nailed this scene. Oh yeah, I also wanted to give a shout out to her fight scene against Icarus as well, because come on, there's no way I can ignore a tremendous display like this one. She was literally up against the strongest Eternal and kept him at bay for a good duration of time, all thanks to that god level speed.
Behind the point of emergence.
They really should have done more with the franchise because one film is simply not enough to showcase the beauty of what Bloodshot was capable of. Anyway, let's focus on the scene where Dr. Harding thinks that he can get rid of his own creation by trying to blow him up.
I told you I'd find you.
I mean, come on, man. Don't you think you would have taken that into consideration when you made the damn super soldier? I mean, genetically enhanced bald man? Alright, let's be honest here. This is basically Captain America if he was made with Iron Man's nanobots. However...
And that's enough.
It was good enough to avoid any IPR lawsuits, so it's good enough to be on my list. Now, the regeneration was clearly supposed to be the money shot of the whole film because you can see they put a lot of work in the visual effects here. Ray was able to come back from something that was good enough to take the lives of a whole group of people, so it almost feels as if he was being resurrected by the Lord himself.
And I am the only one who can rebuild you.
But you know what? Vin Diesel doesn't need God when he has family. Well, technically he doesn't have a family here, but he does end the film with Eliza Gonzalez, so that's got to count for something.
Don't make me do this.
Bring it down hard. Someday, put it together.
What are you doing?
Dance off, bro. Me and you.
The first Guardians of the Galaxy film will always remain the best of the trio, and the final dance attack from Star-Lord was nothing short of divine intervention. I mean, come on, just look at how bamboozled and clueless Ronan was over there.
Come on. Subtle. Take it back.
What are you doing?
He's got the accuser in his name, but Chris Pratt hit him with the moves of a smooth criminal. Alright, I'm joking. I'm obviously referring to what happens after he distracts Ronan long enough to get hold of the Power Stone. The sequence with all the Guardians holding onto a freaking Infinity Stone and decimating their enemy to bits with it was as elite as it could have gotten for an underdog movie, and I sure as heck enjoyed every bit of it. The pacing of the scene helped establish the impact, especially after that drastic shift in tone with the whole dance-off being revealed to have been a sabotage maneuver. Also, if you think about it now, Star-Lord is still half god at this stage in the timeline, so I guess he only needed a little push to be able to unleash all that power. All that was needed was Groot coming in with the "We are Groot" line before the Guardians went through with a finishing blow.
What are you doing?
I'm distracting you, you big turd blossom.
Listen, nobody watched this movie and nobody wants to talk about it ever again. I know that. But whether you like it or not, there is a God mode scene here, and it's right in the final battle where the three Captain Marvels join forces to fight against Dar-Benn. Now, the battle isn't exactly something to take home about, but it's rather what happens after Kamala's bands end up doing a better job at defeating the villain than three of the most powerful characters in the MCU, or so they say. Anyway, I'm not here to debate that, but rather to talk about the part where Monica Rambeau gets an energy boost from Kamala Khan and Carol Danvers to become this somewhat godly entity. Closing a rupture hole between realities is something that your standard superhero wouldn't be able to do, so yeah, I've got to give credit to this sequence for giving us a memorable moment and highlighting the true nature of the powers these characters are supposed to have. Look, I know that the only Captain Marvel with any kind of recognition is Brie Larson, but you've got to give it up to Monica and Kamala for being able to make this whole teaming up exercise count for something. You might have seen me primarily focus on two. The next time you want to question why the Wolverine is my favorite X-Men hero, just look at the Nagasaki bomb scene and you'll know exactly why. Wait, I don't mean the one in real life. That's more along the lines of something Christopher Nolan would make a movie on and win an Oscar for. Anyway, the scene I'm referring to is the opening of 2013's The Wolverine, where Logan ends up saving his newfound Japanese buddy Yashida from the actual bombing of World War II. Yeah, seeing Wolverine standing up from the full weight of an atomic bomb and shrugging it off as it was just some dust on him was as epic as it could get. You could even say that he was Yashida's guardian angel, but seriously man, those healing powers must have been put to the test severely during this scene. We may not have been shown the whole process of Logan having to resist the force of the explosion, but even then,
It's not safe.
the aftermath was more than enough to give us a dreadful idea. I don't care how powerful you are, it takes a special kind of strength to be able to withstand the creation of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Well, this is pretty much the manifestation of God himself, so it warrants Lucy's presence here. Don't be mistaken, Scarlett Johansson is always welcome at the TV region, but the grand finale of 2014's Lucy really had a lot of us scratching our heads after the movie. We got to see glimpses of what she was capable of after her little run-ins with the hitmen, but the real fun came in when she reached full capacity. Sis was able to travel across different dimensions and timelines, all of which were visually spectacular and had clear influences from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like she just disappeared and became one with the universe the moment she hit that 100%. It was clear that Lucy was going to be the central focus of the whole film. I mean, her name is literally the movie's name, but the point is that she transforms from an innocent victim to time, matter, and space itself. I know the theory about humans not really using their brains to full capacity is a little sus, but films are all about fantasy and this scenario really does feel uplifting. Also, I know that Lucy may not be technically a superhero, but she's played by Black Widow and ends up like a god-adjacent entity by the end of the movie, so it still counts by my logic. Also, I'm a simp, so just deal with it.
You lied to me!
No, I'm trying to help you. Let me help you.
Spider-Man may be one of the most popular comic book characters of all time, but when it comes to his Spidey sense, there really isn't a lot to look at if we consider the live-action adaptations. Luckily, we've got this one scene from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 where Peter Parker manages to go God mode with his Spidey sense to the effect that he's able to save a whole group of innocent bystanders in all of 2 business seconds. With the way Electro was giving out all those shockers, it was only going to be a matter of time before something bad happened, which is why Spidey's actions here are so impactful. Even the way those webs absorbed the currents was done in a neat fashion and went perfectly well with the almost neon setting. The visuals perfectly complemented what his state of mind was at the time, and we got to understand this power of his with a lot more clarity. Sure, he had to take a couple of hits right after, but his first and foremost responsibility has always been to save people, so it doesn't take anything away from what he just did a few moments ago.
You shouldn't have killed my mom and squished my Walkman.
Listen, I'd never advocate any kind of fighting between father and son, but if you look at the battle between Star-Lord and Ego, even you'd be fine with me deviating from my own rules. I'd already mentioned in the earlier entry that Star-Lord was half god, and over here he makes sure to flex to its fullest extent. To be fair, this was all because of him learning his own dad caused the end of his mom. Dear God, what on earth is up with his family, eh? Where's Vin Diesel when you need him? Oh wait, he's in this movie too, but as a baby tree dude. Anyway, seeing Peter Quill explode with so much rage wasn't something you'd expect to see, and the results were brutal. The way he attacked Ego and started smashing his face with that rock was savage AF, and the ensuing destruction that followed had perfectly captured what the man was going through at the time. Yes, you're up against a Celestial, but hey, if you're a mama's boy, not even a god can get in your way. Also, let me make something clear here. While I do suggest getting angry and attacking the enemy after learning something horrible about a loved one, this only applies to situations where there's no team plan already in place to stop said opponent.
You are a god. If you kill me, you'll be just like everybody else.
From collecting the Infinity Stones and snapping half the universe into oblivion. Yeah, Infinity Ward Star-Lord, I'm looking at you. It's not complete until we have the tricky quickie as part of it, eh? When we talk about God Mode Quicksilver, there's only one X-Men version that can be considered, and there are at least two. It's the X-Mansion rescue scene where Peter Maximoff saves everyone in ridiculously quick time. Like, I've already spoken about how it should be impossible for even a speedster to pull off something of this caliber, but I guess that's why such scenes always remain fresh in our memories. Take this sequence too seriously because of the carefree attitude with which Bro is saving the little kids and teens from a lethal explosion. Sure, he couldn't save Alex Summers, but that dude was already gone before Peter could even reach the mansion in the first place. Imagine how useful this guy would have been as a firefighter or a rescue unit team member. All those movies with tragic origins would have become...
You took everything from me.
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and in the case of Scarlet Witch, it kind of looked like she was the devil herself when she took on Thanos in Endgame. You got to feel for her though. She lost her robot lover, so yeah, I can imagine the toll that kind of loss would have had on a person. Thanos really thought he did something when he told Wanda he had no idea who she was, but then he made sure he'd never forget the kind of thrashing she gave him because damn, that woman was out for blood. Not only did she hold her own against the Mad Titan, but she also destroyed his ridiculously overpowered sword and was able to strip off most of his armor before he decided to turn into a coward and use his ship's weapons to cause a distraction. I swear, if Wanda had another couple of minutes with the guy, maybe Tony Stark would have still been alive and we wouldn't have to deal with the kind of content we're getting nowadays on Disney+.
You will.
What were you the god of again?
It's kind of redundant for an actual god to awaken God Mode, but if it looks as amazing as Thor's brutal lightning blast on Hela, then I'm all for it. Family quarrels may come and go, but it's divine power that stays with you forever. Of course, our man does get thrashed for quite a bit before this moment, but he needed some trigger to unleash his true might as the God of Thunder. Not only was that lightning blast magnificent, but it was also the subsequent battle against Hela's soldiers that made this moment even more memorable. Plus, you've got the Immigrant song playing in the background, so it's kind of hard to go wrong there. This sequence had some cool shots of Thor with his lightning eyes, and just looking at them gave me the vibe that he was on a whole other level after remembering his dad. While his big sister was bullying him. Man, they really should have ended Thor's solo arc with Ragnarok.
Hit it with a lightning blast.
I just hit it with the biggest lightning blast in the history of lightning. It did nothing.
Because even though it came across as a bit goofy at times, it still showcased the God of Thunder as a serious character with deadly powers. Can't really say the same for Love and Thunder now, can we? Hey look, here's another entry from the same X-Men movie. Well, it does involve the OG mutant god, so I guess it does make sense. But here, it's not the god who's doing the flexing. Rather, we have our sweet, innocent Jean Grey totally losing it and unleashing all her powers on Apocalypse, which eventually leads him to burn to a crisp. For a PG-13 film, this was brutal, but hey, I absolutely loved it. At one point, I was kind of getting scared because I didn't know how the X-Men were going to win this one.
Unleash your power! Let go, Jean! Jean, let go!
They already pulled out all their big guns, so there really wasn't anything left apart from maybe Wolverine randomly showing up to have a field day with Apocalypse. Hey, that would have made for a pretty cool battle if you think about it. Anyway, having Jean randomly appear and go Phoenix mode wasn't something I was expecting, but I also ended up loving this moment the most. Watching Apocalypse finally meet his end might have been too much for a young girl, but hey, that's how you deal with a god who's fallen from grace. Man, one of my greatest issues with the MCU is that we still haven't seen Doctor Strange unleash his powers to their fullest extent despite having 2 solo movies to his name. Well, the second one was more of a cheap bait and switch, so we shouldn't have expected anything from that one in the first place. However, my point remains that this dude is supposed to be on the same power level as the Sorcerer Supreme, so he needs to flex occasionally to prove that point. Luckily, there's one point where we see him going ham, and that's when he took on Thanos in Infinity War. It was a short battle and he ended up losing, but the powers on display were nothing short of spectacular.
And I will give you the stone.
The way Strange was able to deflect the might of a whole Infinity Stone with his own sorcery, that too without using the Time Stone, was epic in its own way and deserved my respect. He cemented the fact that he was the master of the mystic arts and he made all those copies of himself as well. Man, I feel if Thanos had 1 stone lesser on him, then the result of this fight would have gone a completely different direction. Oh yeah, there's also plot armor, because Bro could have just made a portal under the Mad Titan then just chopped him in half.
Used your greatest weapon.
Here's another god, or rather goddess, who simply does what people expect from her. Wonder Woman will forever be my eternal love, which is why I've chosen her to kick off my top 10, and the scene in question is pretty badass as well.
You set my soul on fire.
Ares was really testing her with his own strength throughout the final battle, but it all went to the dogs when Steve sacrificed himself and Princess Diana decided to stop pulling her punches. Of course, the battle does carry on for a while longer, but I'm more interested in this sequence of events because that's where she flexes the most. The sheer dominance on display after Steve's demise was incredible to watch, even though the recipients of the damage were normal soldiers. Oh yeah, there's also the part where she lifts a freaking tank. So it's hard to argue against her god status when you see stuff like that. And of course, Gal Gadot looks stunning even when she's angry, so there's no way I'm not putting her on my list. Imagine being such a badass that you end up defeating the Man of Steel and then go on a mission to save his mom. These are just standard Batman things, and the warehouse battle sequence has grown on me so much that you can now officially call me a fan of Batfleck. The devastation Bruce Wayne causes here is nothing short of extraordinary, because it's not just about him thrashing a bunch of goons and throwing them around. He's also taking bullet shots to the body. However, the Dark Knight simply brushes it off and carries on his demolition job as if it's just another Monday. This is one of the few sequences in the Snyderverse where we got to watch and appreciate Batman's true fighting abilities. So I guess I'm grateful we got something from our favourite anti-hero. No, seriously, the DCEU did us wrong by not making a solo Batman film. Well, Carol Danvers is on this list twice, which is more of an achievement than Brie Larson's entire career as an MCU actress. But hey, I don't want to be mean, so let's just look at this epic moment where Captain Marvel comes in to turn the tide against Thanos in the final Endgame battle. This is actually right after the Wonder fight I'd mentioned earlier, so you could say that this film had 2 God Mode sequences, one right after the other. This one obviously ranks higher because Captain Marvel can destroy the entire battleship in all of 10 business seconds, while the rest of the Avengers are just standing there and thinking, why didn't we just send her out in the first place? I swear, the way she ended up wrecking Thanos' ship gave the vibe of her being this uber cool cheat code you could use anytime you were in trouble. It's kind of funny how the Flash ended up saving the DCU by going back in time and reversing the effects of the anti-life equation, and then went on to dig his grave with his own solo film. Well, I'd rather not get into the poetic part of it, so let's just focus on the positives for now.
Whatever happens, I want you to know.
Turning back time is probably the godliest thing you can do because you're essentially changing fate, which is something that only the ones in the heavens are capable of. So when Barry Allen put everything in that he had to make sure the world wouldn't be lost, he clearly elevated himself to a supreme being. I mean, come on, even Superman couldn't survive that explosion. So he just knew that the world was done for it if Steppenwolf's plan had come to fruition. Luckily, the Flash realized that he had one last trick up his sleeve, and he managed to get the job done not just for the Justice League, but also for all of Earth. I just mentioned Superman, and since you haven't seen him anywhere on this list up until now, it clearly meant that I was saving him for my top 5. It's a shame to see Henry Cavill give up the suit, but I suppose we all need to move on with it because James Gunn ain't changing his mind. On a more badass note, the moment when Kal-El stops the world engine by straight up wrecking it beyond salvation was a truly enlightening moment. The look of determination on his face and that savage scream right before he goes in for the kill both enhanced the sequence and established the intense tone that Zack Snyder always goes for in his typical stylistic fashion. By the end of it, the Man of Steel saves the world from becoming another Krypton, which was basically the ultimate sacrifice, as he knew he'd be ending his civilization with his actions. That's the responsibility not just of a superhero, but also a god. If it's a God mode video and I've already mentioned Thor's ultimate lightning blast on Hela, then you can bet your bottom dollar that the Wakanda entrance is also going to show up at some point on this list. This was the first time we got to see Stormbreaker in action, and she didn't disappoint as Thor went ham with vengeance right from the get-go. Nobody cared about the fact that there was an entire army of the other Avengers at that point. All eyes were on the God of Thunder, and the surreal moment when he leapt and struck the ground with that deadly lightning blow will forever remain etched in our memories.
I told you. You die for that.
As a peak MCU moment. Man, I really missed that version of Thor. Don't get me wrong though, I don't mind a bit of comedy every now and then, but jokes can only take you so far when you're dealing with a huge audience. It's kind of surprising to see a mere mortal with premium steroids so high up on this list, but he does lift a weapon only a god could be worthy of, so he qualifies. Captain America picking up Mjolnir was one of the highlights of Endgame because the audience needed closure on what they saw in Age of Ultron all of those years ago. Finally, they could breathe a sigh of relief and let out a scream of joy at the same time as Steve Rogers not only lifts the hammer, but also gives Thanos a thorough thrashing right after it. It's the best you'll ever get to see Captain America in a fight, and I totally lost it when I saw him going solo against the Mad Titan. Also, I just wanted to give a shout out to the moment where he hands over his shield to Sam. Because it kind of felt like he was passing on his legacy as one of the MCU's greatest characters. If only that translated to a better show than Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Come on now, did you really think this video was going to pass by without an Iron Man entry? I was saving the best for last, or in this case, the second from last, because I know how much of an impact this moment had, not just on the MCU, but also the entirety of pop culture. The snap that ended Thanos and his army saved the entire universe, even if it came at the cost of the MCU's most important character of all time. You can try all you want to replace him, but we know that'll never happen because there's only one Iron Man, and that's none other than Robert Downey Jr. On a side note, I'm happy he won the Oscar for his role in Oppenheimer. He really deserved it.
My son, It is forbidden for you to interfere in human business.
One thing I do know, son, and that is you are here for a reason.
Kind of surprised with this one now, aren't you? Well, the only reason this scene takes the top spot over Tony Stark's snap is seniority, as it was the first ever sequence to show Superman going back in time, even if it was just to save his babe.
It is forbidden for you to interfere with human history. It is forbidden.
It's also a rare moment of rage coming from the Man of Steel, and it shook the world back in 1978 just as much as what Endgame did in 2019. Eras are relative, so I don't want to do any comparisons, but yeah, this one gets to the top of the list because it came out first and makes Flash's time reversal look pale in comparison, especially because there were only practical effects during that time. Bro really did all that just to make sure he had cheeks to clap on a regular basis.
All those things I can do, all those powers, and I couldn't even save him.
Hope you like this video, please subscribe to the TV Regent, and here's another video I know you're going to enjoy.